led to the passenger being dragged off a United Airlines flight. Waters World investigates and debates. Plus, you thought draining the swamp in D.C. was hard? Well, we tried it in Texas. Waters World begins right now. Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. How fake news is getting trumped. That's the subject of tonight's Waters Words. You hear that? That silence is the sound of the Trump-Russia collusion scandal dying. A few weeks ago, if you turned on your television, all you heard was this.
Collusion between Trump associates and Russians during the election.
Members of Donald Trump's presidential campaign had repeated contact with Russian intelligence officials.
But this was all a diversion. If anybody was getting played by the Russians, it was the Obama administration. Let's take a look at the history. It started with this pathetic stunt.
We want to reset our relationship. And
let's do it together.
So we will do it together, okay?
Hillary tried to reset relations with the Russians by offering up a button, and she misspelled the word reset. Hillary's State Department approved a deal giving a Russian nuclear concern access to 20% of American uranium production capacity. A deal that involved a shady Clinton Foundation donor. Maybe that's worth an investigation? Then there was President Obama himself caught on a hot mic cozying up to the Russian leadership.
This is my last election for you. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility.
Imagine if Trump was caught saying that. When Mitt Romney labeled Russia America's biggest geopolitical foe, President Obama mocked him.
The 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because, the Cold War has been over for 20 years.
And when Putin invaded Crimea and half of Ukraine, the Obama administration responded by sending our ally food, not badly needed weapons. President Obama also famously bent over backwards and sent Russia's biggest Mideast ally, Iran, a terrorist nation, hundreds of billions of dollars. That deal was so Iran wouldn't nuke up. And President Obama cut a friendly deal with Russia's second biggest ally in the Middle East, Syria. Assad promised he'd remove all of his chemical weapons with Russian help. But 2 weeks ago, used chemical weapons on his own people. President Obama got played again. And by the way, if Syria lied to Obama about its chemical weapons, isn't it possible that Iran lied to him about their nuclear program? Likely. But after Hillary's humiliating loss in November, the left began smearing Trump as a Putin puppet because they couldn't accept defeat. We heard the words special prosecutor, treason, and even impeachment. Now notice that narrative is dead. Why? Because President Trump launched 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria right on Russia's doorstep. You don't do that if you're in cahoots with the Kremlin. President Trump characterized the relationship this way.
Right now, we're not getting along with Russia at all. We may be at an all-time low in terms of relationship with Russia.
And he had this to say about Russia's stooge, Bashar Assad.
Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person. This is an animal.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson went to Moscow and read the former Reds' The Riot Act. Remember how Rex got an award from Putin years back? Putin refused to be seen with him in public. The Russians have blasted the Trump administration and have scrambled ships off the coast of Syria. And a world-renowned Russian expert summed it up this way.
I have never been as worried as I am today about the possibility of war with Russia.
So with their Russian Trump smear campaign up in smoke, guess what Democrats have been reduced to? Look here what Congressman Swalwell tweeted to his random followers. Help me connect the Trump-Russia dots. Submit your tips and we'll follow the evidence and post online. So Democrats are setting up an internet tip hotline. Congress has subpoena power, investigative tools, FISA courts, and they're asking Joe Smith from Arkansas if he has any tips. Obviously, they have nothing. But almost as if they didn't think anybody would notice, the media dropped the Russian attack mid-battle and unleashed a new anti-Trump attack. Roll the tape.
From President Trump, a flurry of flip-flops.
I said, here's the problem with NATO. It's obsolete.
I said it was obsolete. It's no longer obsolete.
From President Trump, a very different tone about the country he previously called an enemy.
President Xi wants to do the right thing.
What a change from candidate Trump, who repeatedly used China as a punching bag.
We can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing. Right now, we're not getting along with Russia at all. We may be at an all-time low in terms of relationship with Russia.
That was not what candidate Trump thought was meant to be.
I'll explain each of these one by one and speak simply so even the media can understand. Donald Trump campaigned on and still believes that NATO nations aren't paying their fair share of alliance costs. That rhetoric was effective, and NATO nations are now beginning to pony up more. But due to Russian foul play in Syria, Trump's pro-NATO language sends a powerful signal to Putin at this time that he better watch his step, because he'll meet resistance. Putin despises NATO, and Trump knows that. On China, Trump still believes China is ripping us off and plays games with its currency. And he had frank discussions with the Chinese leader in Mar-a-Lago about that. But the president understands he needs China now for two major issues. One, a warmer Chinese-American relationship ices out Russia and gives us leverage over Putin. And two, we need Chinese help in taming North Korea, and that's working. China already is refusing coal. Korea has been shipping there. And we all realize the chemical attack by Russia's client state completely changed the Trump-Russia calculus. No further explanation needed. In conclusion, pay close attention to the mainstream media narratives about Donald Trump. They change quickly and reveal more about the media than the president. Their latest lane change demonstrates that anti-Trump press will always be in attack mode. But Waters World knows their playbook. Fake scandals, smears, and flip-flop allegations will be employed interchangeably throughout the news cycle. But President Trump, unlike most Republicans in Washington, doesn't cave when he's attacked. The fake news media gets rolled over now and is left grasping at straw men. But you know what else was really revealing this week? How regular Americans are processing the Syria-Russia situation. I hit the streets of New York to see what they know. What's happening right now in Syria?
I'm not sure.
I have no idea. I don't know what's going on in Syria.
Trump over there sending things, missiles, whatever.
What happened in Syria?
The Syrian government actually used chemical bombs against their own civilians, and a lot of children died.
Do you support that, what Trump did?
I don't like Trump.
So you're okay with the dictator gassing innocent civilians?
Oh, no.
So you agree with Trump?
Yes.
The chemical weapon that happened over there in Syria, it was Trump that committed it.
Where'd you hear that?
On Facebook.
Right.
Do you know who the president of Syria is?
No.
No.
Rhymes with Mashad.
I don't know.
Assad?
Yes!
Yay!
Where is Syria?
Oh, God, on the map.
In Europe or Africa?
Northeast.
Like New England?
I don't know where Syria is. I know where I'm at.
Where are you?
I'm in New York City right now, on 6th Ave, between 41st and 42nd or something.
This is actually 8th Ave. Now, Russia is very angry at the United States for launching these attacks against Syria. Why is that, do you think?
I don't know. Everything about money. It's all about money, man.
Is Russia on America's side or Syria's side?
America's side.
If Trump is colluding with Russia, then why did he strike Russia's biggest ally?
That's a diversion. If that was the case, it was the biggest diversion and the best Hail Mary play you will ever see in your life.
Does this change your opinion of Donald Trump?
I'd say my opinion's pretty steady.
I am not a Donald Trump supporter, but I respect what Donald Trump did.
Coming up, new information on the passenger dragged off the United flight. And later, Waters World takes on the swamp.
ISIS is making a tremendous amount of money because they have certain oil camps, right? They have certain areas of oil that they took away. They have some in Syria, some in Iraq. I would bomb the out of them.
Donald Trump fulfilling his campaign promise to bomb the bleep out of ISIS on Thursday. Our Air Force dropped the mother of all bombs on an ISIS tunnel complex in Afghanistan. At least 36 terrorists were killed. The massive ordnance air blast, MOAB, known as the mother of all bombs, is the largest non-nuclear weapon in existence. It was built in 2003 and has never been used before in combat until a few days ago. Joining me now is White House terrorism advisor Dr. Sebastian Gorka. So, Dr. Gorka, I want to read 2 tweets from a soldier who was over in Afghanistan. He says, "I lost my legs because my government was afraid to use the tools they had and saw me as expendable. I wish I'd had this administration. After losing a Green Beret hero in Afghanistan a few days ago, POTUS sent a new message towards the cowards who killed him." So, Dr. Gorka, if this weapon was available for the last over 10 years, why is it first being used now?
Because finally we have leadership and we have a president, a commander-in-chief, President Trump, who understands that diplomacy without force to back it up is nothing. We've had a spineless administration for 8 years under President Obama, but now America is back. And I can tell you one thing, Jesse. I met Donald Trump in 2015, and within 5 minutes, I knew something about this man. He is a patriot. He loves this country, and most of all, he loves our men and women in uniform. And this is why he took the action he took to send a very clear message, not just to the Taliban or ISIS, but to everybody out there who thinks that the last 8 years is America. It's not.
Because what I hear is that the previous administration was so concerned overly with civilian casualties, they didn't give the commanders in the field license to use this type of weapon. And from what I know now, they take so many precautions to make sure civilian casualties don't occur. They fly multiple drones out over the targets beforehand, and then they unleash this thing. Tell me about the psychological impact this has, not just on ISIS in Afghanistan, but all over the world.
Look, you're absolutely right, Jesse. So I can tell you from day one in the White House, I had a Tier 1 operator who's detailed here who told me the morale is just incomparable. Everybody knows that the soldiers, the Marines, they're allowed to do their job now. We've unleashed the military. What you talked about the last 8 years, think about this. We have declassified open source reports of people in theater, pilots, who aren't allowed to engage terrorists, ISIS on the ground, unless somebody back in D.C. or in a command center sees on the same video feed that the bad guys are down there. That's the 8,000-mile screwdriver. I mean, we didn't even do that during Vietnam, and we had problems during Vietnam. So that has all changed. And the president is serious in the message. You've asked the right question. What we did in the last seven to 10 days, that's not about Syria. It's not just about Afghanistan. It's about sending a message to anybody out there who doesn't take America seriously and thinks they can threaten us or our allies or our partners. That's why the president is the master of the deal.
I think ISIS got a message pretty clearly. This is kind of an anti-ISIS recruiting propaganda video. I mean, if you're going to die, you don't want to die like that, with your lungs pouring out of your skull. I think they're going to have little recruitment problems after watching that. So we've seen these Tomahawks fly into Syria, and you've seen an armada come off the coast of North Korea, and then you see this MOAB over there in Afghanistan. Describe in a few words your interpretation of President Trump's grand defense strategy.
Very simply, there's 2 members of the cabinet who come from the same Marine Corps division. That division has a motto, an informal one, and it's a good one. And the motto is, no better friend, no worse enemy. The idea that we're going to lead from behind, which is an oxymoron, the idea that our strategy is going to be strategic patience, which means doing nothing, that's gone. We've jettisoned that, Jesse. We are saying to the world, American values, American safety, and we're going to protect and help our allies. But this isn't the Bush administration. This isn't about invasion and occupation. That has not changed. It's very important for your viewers to understand. Donald Trump on November the 7th is Donald Trump President Donald Trump today. This is not a neocon administration. This is not an interventionist one. It's an American one that will stand up to evil around the world.
Well, thanks for clarifying that. And I found quite interesting some of the people on the left very upset at the term tomahawk missile. That was offensive to Native Americans. And then the mother of all bombs, they also thought was quite sexist. It's funny how these people think, and I don't understand it. But Dr. Gorka, thank you very much for appearing on Water's World.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful Easter.
You too. Take a look at the comedian who's emceeing the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Donald Trump is white ISIS. WISIS.
Water's World takes a closer look at this guy. And later, draining the swamp, Water's World style.
I'm not afraid to take a stand, Everybody, come take my hand.
The White House Correspondents Association announcing this week that Daily Show comedian and resident left-winger Hassan Minhaj, no relation to Nikki, will be headlining the annual dinner.
Donald Trump is white ISIS. WISIS. Can I be real? Can I be real, Trevor? I mean,
Be real.
Yeah, I just want to be real.
Just be you, man. Be real.
Where are all the moderate white conservatives? I mean, come on. They got a responsibility to step up and speak out against WISIS. And every conservative isn't the same, I know. But it's just easier on my brain to be irrationally afraid of an entire group of people.
President Trump won't be there. You can probably guess why. But hundreds of liberal journalists will be. Joining me now, Fox News chief national correspondent and past president of the White House Correspondents Association and author of the new book, 42 Faith, the rest of the Jackie Robinson story, Ed Henry. What a long introduction. My goodness, I'm out of breath, Ed.
I love it.
So you were a part of this association, and then you were even the president at one time. Yeah. What goes into booking someone like this? Do you think they're taking a subtle shot at the president? This guy kind of seems like a hater. I can't even tell if he's kidding or not, though.
Yeah, you try to find someone. What I ended up getting Conan O'Brien because I thought, look, he would take some shots at President Obama at the time. But he was a big name, and he was sort of on a comeback because he had been knocked out at NBC, and he was over at TBS. And in private conversations I had with him, I thought he was somebody who was excited to get the big stage again, and I thought he did a great job.
So you had to pre-interview Conan to see if he was okay to do the gig. Is that what you did?
Yeah, and you don't want to censor, but I do think that it's pretty clear that Conan understood there's a balance there, which is you're going to take some shots at the president, and rightly so, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. But it looks like this year's pick is somebody, there's not going to be balance. It's just going to be 100% bash Trump. And so he's not there to defend himself. That was the president's own decision. But I think you could be in store for a night where it's just nonstop hitting the president.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be a pretty lame dinner if the president's not going to be there. But you're going to be there, so I guess you'll make up for it. I
look forward to seeing you.
Okay, I'm not going to be there. I don't know if I'm allowed back. Sean Spicer got into a little trouble this week and had to clean it up. Let's see what he said originally. Roll the tape.
We didn't use chemical weapons in World War II. You know, you had someone as despicable as Hitler who didn't even sink to using chemical weapons. He brought him into the Holocaust Center. I understand that, but I'm saying in the way that Assad used them, where he went into towns, dropped them down to innocent into the middle of towns.
So the press secretary has apologized and clarified. Now, you used to sit in those chairs where you lob questions at the press secretary. What's it like being in the room when you can kind of feel a kind of gaffe unfolding in real time? How does that room interpret that?
I remember being in the room when President Obama said something about ISIS was all the rage, and everyone saying, what are you going to do about this? And the president said, we don't have a strategy to deal with ISIS yet. And in real time, did he really just say that? And I think there was another moment. To be fair, that was on the Democratic side. Now on the Republican side, I mean, the first clip you played, it was shocking enough that Sean Spicer was trying to claim that Hitler didn't do these awful things.
Right.
But then to talk about Holocaust centers like they're like rest stops on the Jersey Turnpike, I mean, it seemed absurd that the cleanup was almost as bad as the beginning part. I think in fairness to him, they were obviously concentration camps, by the way, not Holocaust centers. But I think in fairness to Sean Spicer, he admitted quickly that he made a horrible mistake. He apologized. And I think, especially since it's a Trump aide, you're going to see some in the mainstream media just keep piling on, even though the man apologized.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ultimately, it's up to one person.
Yeah, and
Trump.
it's a total,
will the president keep him on or not?
Yeah, and I think he will, and it's a feeding frenzy. And just for fairness, I want to show you a clip of Chris Matthews saying the exact same thing. Roll this.
Don't use chemical weapons. We didn't use them in World War II. Hitler didn't use them. We don't use chemical weapons. That's no deal.
You know, I'm not trying to, you know, do the tit-for-tat thing. I'm just making the point that there wasn't the same type of outrage when Matthews says as Spicer. But, Ed, you know, I got to run because we got to pay some bills. I started reading the book on the flight, your Jackie Robinson book. It's excellent, and I recommend it to everybody. It's a great read. There it is. Thank you very much, and happy
Jesse,
Easter.
you said that I could barely read. You didn't know I could write. That's what you said on Twitter. I was slightly hurt, but now that you said that you love the book, I'm okay. We're friends again.
You're changing hearts and minds. Later in the show, Waters World talking politics in the swamp. And up next, new information that may change your mind about the United Airlines scandal. Waters World investigates and debates.
Coffee.
This is a Fox News alert. Good evening. I'm Julie Banderas. An attempted missile launch by North Korea ends in failure. The U.S. military now confirming the missile blew up as it was launching from North Korea's east coast. The type of missile is still being assessed. There has been no word about the attempted launch from the government of North Korea. This failure comes as North Korea was showing off its military might during a parade to celebrate the 105th birthday of founder Kim Il-sung. Thousands of soldiers goose-stepping in front of current leader Kim Jong-un. The North Koreans also showing off a number of its intercontinental ballistic missiles. Vice President Mike Pence, meantime, was briefed on the failed launch while on his way to South Korea, the start of a four-nation Asian-Pacific visit. He has meetings scheduled Monday with South Korea's acting president and other leaders. Stay tuned to Fox for the breaking details. I'm Julie Banderas. Now back to Waters World.
We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the bad in the past. Now we alright.
Welcome back. We've all seen this viral video showing Dr. David Dow dragged off a United Airlines flight last Sunday. There are still many questions surrounding what led up to this now infamous event. But here's what we do know. The flight was scheduled to take off from Chicago at 5:40 p.m. The flight was headed to Louisville, Kentucky. During the boarding process, passengers were told the flight was overbooked, and United was looking for volunteers who would give up their seats. In exchange, the passengers would receive a $400 voucher and an overnight hotel stay in Chicago. No one volunteered. A United manager then boarded, telling passengers 4 people needed to get off to make room for 4 United crew members who needed to be in Louisville that night. They upped the offer to an $800 voucher and a hotel stay. Still no volunteers. At this point, the supervisor told passengers that 4 people would be randomly selected to leave. The selection process is done by a computer and picks people based on frequent flyer status, check-in time, your itinerary, and the group you're traveling with. 1 couple and a woman were chosen and left. Then Dr. Dow was selected and, according to witnesses, became, quote, very upset. 2 security officers from the Chicago Department of Aviation were brought in to assist.
I'm physician, have to work tomorrow, 8 o'clock. I am not going. I am not going. Well, you can track me down, I won't go. I'm not going, I stay.
The officers then yanked Dow out of his seat, hitting his head on an armrest. An officer then drags Dow's limp body down the aisle off of the airplane. Shortly after, Dow somehow returned to the plane and ran to the rear, his face very bloodied. With Dow cornered, the remaining passengers deplaned. A medical crew attended to Dow, and the plane was cleaned before taking off. On Monday evening, United CEO Oscar Munoz sent a letter to employees claiming they, quote, followed established procedures and even calling Dow, quote, disruptive and belligerent. This, even though the 3 aviation security officers were suspended. Fast forward 36 hours and a lot of backlash on social media, along with the company's stocks that plummeted $1.4 billion. And all of a sudden, Munoz is changing his tune.
Do you think he's at fault in any way?
No, he can't be. He was a paying passenger sitting on our seat in our aircraft, and no one should be treated that way. Period.
On Wednesday, David Dow hired attorneys to represent him, of course. And Thursday, we finally heard from his side.
United Airlines, in this case, is responsible.
What happened to my dad should have never happened to any human being, regardless of the circumstance.
As a side note, we've also learned more about Dr. Dow. In 2004, the lung doctor was convicted of obtaining drugs by fraud or deceit. The New York Post reports that Dr. Dow was trading prescription painkillers for sex. He was sentenced to 5 years probation and lost his medical license. However, he got it back in 2015. Joining me now to tackle all of this is commercial airline pilot Kathleen Bangs and aviation litigation attorney who has won hundreds of millions for his clients, Arthur Walk. All right, so guys, let me start with you, Arthur. If this guy doesn't leave and you're saying, get out of here, you gotta go, what are you supposed to do if he's not gonna cash in on some of these vouchers?
Well, United Airlines had absolutely no right to remove him from the airplane. There's a contract of carriage that most people don't know about. It's 50 pages long that United issues. In that contract of carriage, United had absolutely no justification to remove him. He was a lawful passenger who paid for his ticket. He was seated. The flight was not oversold. He was not denied boarding. He was boarded. He purchased a ticket from Chicago to Louisville, not from Chicago to a hospital. Right. United Airlines has no right to
he
move
should
him.
not have been bloodied up the way he was. And I guess, you know, these aviation security guys, they're not necessarily hostage negotiators. So, I don't know if they're properly trained when this guy says no. Kathleen, is there anything fishy about this guy? I mean, he runs back on the plane. He refuses to comply with orders from these aviation security officials. And, we have some stuff in his back history that may or may not have anything to do with that. What's your take on this guy's character, even if it doesn't even matter?
Well, my take is that if he had said, okay, under duress, I will get off this airplane, he was heard before the officers manhandled and roughed him up, which they really did. They really did abuse him. Yeah. But he was recorded on his phone saying, I'm going to sue United Airlines. And that's before everything escalated. So if he had stood up and said, under duress and under protest, I will step off this airplane, and then went forward with a lawsuit, it would be interesting to see if he would have his day in court, if it would have worked out, because as your other guest mentioned, there is this contract of carriage, and under Section 21, there is part of it that mentions labor. And so if an airline has to, due to weather or due to labor, i.e. they had to get this crew of 4 flight attendants in position for their flight the next day to Kentucky, it would have been interesting to see what a court would make of that and if he would have won.
Arthur,
but because these security officers grossly manhandled him, they've kind of obviously blown any case that they would have.
Yeah, exactly. In court, that's not going to hold. But Arthur, respond to that point that Kathleen just made. I mean, if there's language in there that says if you got to get your guys to Louisville for work, you can eject a passenger. How do you respond to that?
Well, there is no such language in the contract. I have the contract. And the section the lady is referring to talks about strikes. That's the only labor issue. And I might point out, there was an American Airlines flight from Chicago to Louisville leaving 1 hour later. They could have put the crew on that flight. They could have put some members of the crew on the flight deck itself in the jump seats. There are 2 jump seats on the airplane. And they could have, in default of everything else, because they had loaded the airplane with their passengers, they could have put them in a limo. It's a 4-hour ride from O'Hare to Louisville. Instead of having this big brouhaha, a limo could have taken everybody that was necessary to Louisville.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. That's a pretty classy ride. But let me ask you this. This guy kind of strikes me as a litigious guy. Are we going to see him in his next public appearance, like all wrapped up in bandages like a mummy and, ready to launch some sort of $10 million, lawsuit against these people? What do you think, Kathleen? Or is the customer always right?
Well, what I think in this case is that the public, what's great about this is they're going to get an education. A few years ago, we got the Passengers Bill of Rights because airlines were essentially, in the passengers' mind, holding them hostage on long flight delays where bathrooms were overflowing and they couldn't get off the tarmac for 6 or 8 hours. So that's been addressed. Congress is already looking into this. But the public needs to understand that technically, although this is United Airlines, it's really a wholly separate company that isn't owned by United Airlines called Republic. So when they buy this ticket and they think they're on United, they're technically on a company called Republic Airlines with a different set of pilots, with a different set of rules.
Who owns Republic Airlines? Is it the Russians? Because that could be a whole other scandal that we could be looking into. My gosh, I think I'm going to investigate that next time. Yeah. Guys, we got to run. I got to let you guys go. And I just want to let everybody know I love Delta Airlines, all right? I am a Sky Club member. Still to come, Waters World heads to Texas to drain the swamp one rat at a time. And remember this?
We have great pricing coming in. We have some great designs coming in. I think the wall's going to start very soon.
But powerful people are trying to stop the wall from being built.
I think the wall is going to start very soon. We had almost 200 bidders to build the wall. We have great pricing coming in. We have some great designs coming in. I think the wall's going to start very soon.
Are you going to pick the design for the wall?
I'll be very much involved. General Kelly's done a fantastic job. When it comes to design, I'm very good at that stuff. And building on time, on budget, that's what I do.
Okay. Let me know when they break ground. I might be down there with a shovel.
Good. Maybe I'll be down there with you.
That was from my interview with President Trump last month, where he said the wall is ahead of schedule. But Arizona Democratic Congressman Raul Grivala is suing the Department of Homeland Security to stop the construction of the wall because endangered species such as jaguars and ocelots, quote, don't observe international boundaries. Not even sure what an ocelot is. And even more interesting, someone from President Trump's own party, Paul Ryan, is taking heat for suggesting most of the border wall's construction funding may not even be in this year's budget. Some on the right feel Speaker Ryan isn't really interested in funding the wall at all and is using delay tactics. Our next guest had this idea for the border.
When I'm in charge of the fence, we're going to have a fence. It's going to be 20 feet high. It's going to have barbed wire on the top. It's going to be electrified. And there's going to be a sign on the other side that says, it will kill you.
Joining me now, former presidential candidate Herman Cain. Mr. Cain, you wanted to electrocute ocelots and jaguars? How dare you?
Get a sense of humor, Jesse.
I don't even know what an ocelot is. I had to look it up. It's like some mountain cat or something like that.
You know, this whole pushback on the wall, Jesse, is one, they don't want Trump to succeed at fulfilling another campaign promise. And the only endangered species here is the American citizen being hurt by illegals.
Right.
That's what this is about. They don't want Trump to fulfill another campaign promise. Just like you showed earlier, they jumped all over him modifying his position and saying he was a flip-flopper. Right. No, he was listening. He did what you do as a leader. You listen to all of the facts and information, and if you have to modify it at that point when you have all of the information, you're not a flip-flopper. You are a leader. The wall is going to be built, and I'm very happy that it's going to be built.
Now, do you believe, let me ask you, do you believe Paul Ryan doesn't want President Trump to succeed in building the wall, or do you just think games are being played here?
I just think games are being played. I do not believe that Paul Ryan does not want the wall to be built. You see, there's a lot of speculation. You know that because of what you do, and I hear it every day on my radio show. What happens is you get some of the people that are against it, and they can take one word or one phrase and speculate that that means that he doesn't want the wall to be built. Secondly, when they talk about, well, the money's not going to be there, I think also that that's something that they have come up with to fit the narrative to try and kill the idea of the wall, but it's not going anywhere.
Do you really think President Trump is getting involved in the design details for the wall, or do you think that's just a little showmanship, like he's thinking he's going to put a big T on every brick or something like that? How involved do you think he is?
I think that he's going to be involved in the final selection, but he doesn't have time to dot the I's and cross the T's. No, but the final selection, I truly believe he will be involved in, because that's what he has done for many of the big projects he has done for his business over the years.
All right, well, Mr. Kaine, I think maybe if you pony up some dough, you get a special section of that Trump wall that's electrified, and we can start zapping things as they try to cross. Thank you very much. As always.
I just want, Jesse, I just want the sign to be put up on the other side. We will kill you if you cross this wall.
Okay. I think that'll send a very clear message. Thank you very much. Happy Easter on that note. Coming up, Water's World attempts to drain the swamp, but it was
Hunting, fishing, loving every day. That's the prayer that a country boy prays. Thank God.
Remember this campaign promise from President Trump?
When we win on November 8th, we are going to Washington, D.C., and we are going to drain the swamp.
Recently, I teamed up with T. Roy Broussard of Swamp People fame to try and drain the swamp, literally. And let me tell you, it's a lot harder than it looks. Here's what happened down in Texas.
T. Roy, how you doing? Pretty good. Nice to meet you, ma'am.
You don't like my shirt?
No, not at all.
All right, you want to show me how to drain the swamp?
Let's drain the swamp. I'm ready.
Let's do it.
That was the CNN news crew.
Maybe I'd feel more manly if I didn't have these pink earmuffs.
You haven't graduated from pink yet. When we get out there, it's all floating marsh out there.
Is that because of global warming?
No, it's because of the politicians. We got problems in our swamp too. The swamp in Washington is just like the swamp here. People that are in places they shouldn't be. So Trump's going to get rid of all the swamp vermin.
Let's go drain this thing.
Here we go.
Ow.
Pink earmuffs.
So what kind of creatures are we expecting to see out here today?
Alligators, nutria-rats, snakes. But all of these creatures out here are nothing compared to the creatures that live up in your neck of the woods.
That's true. Like Schumer and Pelosi and all that?
Correct.
This neck of the woods voted heavily for Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
These people understand Donald Trump's message. It seems like the rest of the country doesn't really understand the people down here.
You know, you hear about, oh, well, he didn't win the popular vote. Well, you know, when you take the middle America, the working class people, we're the ones that built this country. It's the first time in my life that I was really proud about the man that I voted for and supported. And when you go up north with a Trump sticker, they kind of look at you wrong when they figure out I'm a swamp guy. They kind of don't say too much.
If you ever came up to New York, you think you'd be able to handle that atmosphere?
I can handle anything. Can I bring my gun?
I don't know if de Blasio is going to allow that.
De Blasio. De Blah.
You guys have anything to eat around here?
Well, depends on what you can shoot.
I got him!
Take off the pink earmuffs and you'll get down and be able to pick it up.
With my hands?
Yes, with your hands.
Oh, no way! Oh, no, I don't want to do it! I don't want to do it! I don't want to do it! I can't do it! I can't do it!
Jesse, I'm fixing to make you put them pink earmuffs back on.
Oh!
Look.
I don't like it. Oh!
Here.
Oh!
Look.
Get rid Okay! Ah! That's good! That's good! You guys are disgusting.
Thank you. We're going fishing.
Okay.
So you're starting over. You got the pink tackle box. It's my daughter's, by the way. Don't tell her that I let her use it. She'll get mad.
This is a Barbie tackle box.
Yes.
What are we trying to catch out there?
Largemouth bass.
They have a few of those in Washington, D.C.
My little girl probably could show you a few pointers.
Okay, I'll try not to take offense to that.
No, it's a positive thing. My little girl's badass. Let go. Look at that.
Oh! So you're a professional fisherman, and we caught 0 fish.
Well, you actually hung one and you lost it.
That was a piece of grass.
Hey, Waters.
Yeah.
I'm T-Roy.
Uh-huh.
And this is my world.
Okay, fine. I'll let you have it.
And we're going to have T-Roy up in New York in a little while to see how he handles my world. Up next.